serious, historians, marine biologists, and cryptozoologists of Reddit. As far as legends in history go, what legendary creature do you believe may have been real and probably existed in some way, or what supposedly legendary person in history was more than likely real? Changelings, babies witched out by fairies, were probably an early explanation for birth defects. Also may explain postpartum depression. Think about it in ye olden days, after all, isn't a mother meant to naturally love and bond with their baby? Like automatically? So why am I not bonding with mine? Why do I feel like a failure of a mother? Oh, maybe the fairies came and took my actual baby away, and I am protecting myself from the fairy magic. Archaeologist here. There's a really interesting ancient Egyptian story called the Shipwrecked Sailor, in which a man is washed ashore a beautiful island and is apprehended briefly by an enormous serpent. In the story, the serpent tells him that there used to be hundreds of others like him, but a falling star wiped them all out. I think it's unlikely that the Egyptians had knowledge of dinosaurs, but there's a site called Wadi Hittin that has thousands of ancient whale skeletons from the Eocene. I think it's possible they could have seen these skeletons and mistaken them for giant snakes. Herodotus actually tells similar tales of giant flying snakes in Egypt, and I suppose if you saw these skeletons but no trails, you might think they were capable of flight. The Lusca, giant octopus. It supposedly lives in the blue holes of the coast of Florida, and the amount of food and temperature of water both support the theory of an octopus living long enough to grow way larger than we expect based on our current records. Very simple mythological creatures like black dogs were probably exaggerated stories of encountering wild dogs in the dead of night. They are often described as having glowing eyes, which isn't an unusual effect when torchlight is reflected in dogs' or cats' eyes. The black dog spirits myths of the British Isles are also likely the grim Professor Trelawney was talking about in The Prisoner of Azkaban. I regularly get to see pods of humpback whales at the beach where I surf. Most of the time, all you see is their backs as they partially surface from the water. Occasionally, one of them breaches mouth first, so you see a giant mouth emerge from the water. Other times, you see a giant tail emerge. If you were watching them and had no idea what a whale was, or that you were looking at multiple of them, I could easily imagine mistaking multiple whale backs as the coils of a colossal snake. I strongly suspect that this is the origin of legends of sea serpents. While that could be one origin, take a look at the oarfish. I think that might be the more likely origin, as it can grow to absolutely massive sizes. 11 meters the page says is the largest published length, with unconfirmed sightings of up to 17 meters. Oh man. You want the real gold standard stuff on this. You want Aboriginal Tales from Dreamtime, which in many cases have been proven to be validated records predating the end of the last ice age. They coexisted with megafauna in Australia, and their crypto creatures have literally been linked back to now extinct fauna. There are many diseases at the origin of the vampire myth can be traced back to, however I think rabies fits it the most. In the olden days, people would tie those suspected of it to trees. In about 3 days' time the disease would drastically change them. Extreme light sensitivity, paleness, aggression, excessive drooling. They would try to attack you and have bouts of either extreme slow fatigue or even adrenaline. Also, rabies can be passed from person to person through a bite, not just an infected animal. The Cyclopes of Greek mythology. Go Google up an elephant skull. There's this huge hole right in the middle of it, looking to all the world like a single eye. Now add this to the knowledge that the Cretan dwarf mammoth left subfossil bones on Crete easily discoverable, was 1 meter at the shoulder, and could be more or less assembled into a giant humanoid. A ROC could have been real. It was most likely inspired by the elephant bird of Madagascar. An elephant bird was like a big ostrich about 9 feet high. They didn't go extinct until the 16th or 17th century. Chupacabra. It has to be some poor sick animal with mange. Mange is highly contagious, so if a pack of coyotes or wild dogs got it, they would all have a weird appearance and attack other animals out of hunger. Specifically sarcoptic mange. Demodectoc mange can cause a similar appearance but isn't contagious. But on that note, a lot of the video evidence I've seen circulated looks like coyotes with mange. A couple times raccoons. People don't realize just how weird certain animals look without their fur, but add crusty scabs all over and it can look like a monster. The Maori people of New Zealand have long told stories of the Pākei, a monstrous bird that was big enough to hunt and eat humans. Many believe that these stories are referring to the haast seagull. It was the largest species of eagle ever to have lived on Earth, with weights of around 30 pounds and wingspans almost reaching 10 feet. It lived on New Zealand's South Island and primarily hunted the flightless moa bird, which weighed around 500 pounds. Given the large size of its main prey, it's likely that the eagle may have also targeted lone humans as well. Interestingly enough, the haast seagull went extinct around the year 1400, not long after the Maori arrived in New Zealand. It's thought that its extinction can be attributed to habitat destruction combined with the extinction of the moa due to hunting by the Maori. The Yeti. Recently they sequenced some DNA from so-called Yeti evidence. They pretty much all turned out to be bears, some extinct, some still around. To me the most interesting one was the crossbreed of the black bear and the polar bear. The wendigo probably existed, just not as a creature. People in the far north who survived a brutal winter by eating a family member had a psychological escape hatch for the guilt and horror by convincing themselves they were transforming into a ravenous, murderous beast. They'd continue killing and eating in a hysteric delusion that they had no control over it. Wendigo hunters would then have to come and kill them and perform a shamanic ritual to assure the rest of the tribe that the taint wouldn't spread. It's actually an incredibly fascinating study into culturally specific mental The lengths the mind will go to in order to avoid dealing with a traumatic event are so extraordinary that in that culture they would actually continue to murder and cannibalize fellow tribe members under the delusion they had transformed into a monster. 1. Based on multiple descriptions of the Australian cryptid, the Boone, I firmly believe them to be seals who swam inland. 2. The kraken were likely colossal squid which swam up to the surface. 3. The black demon shark of Mexico is just a large great white with pigment issues. I've heard of a hypothesis that states the Ragnarok myth actually describes an impact event. The Midgard snake could be an object entering the atmosphere. There's a small population of albino deer in my area and they are beautiful. Definitely ethereal looking and totally match the European description of a unicorn. The mythical unicorn likely derives from travelers from Africa or Asia to Europe trying to describe a rhinoceros. There are Asian rhinos in India, Nepal, and Indonesia. When you consider that ancient Greek depictions of lions sometimes looked more like dogs and that the word hippopotamus comes from Greek words meaning river horse, it's easy to see how a Greek traveler would describe a rhino as a one-horned horse. There's linguistic evidence for this idea. 400 years ago it was believed that there were two types of rhinos. Ones with two horns were called rhinoceros and ones with a single horn were called unicorn. So the word unicorn was used to describe both real rhinos and the mythical one-horned horse. It wasn't until zoology advanced as a science that unicorn came to refer purely to the mythical creature. There are still remnants of the original usage though. The genus of the scientific names for Asian rhinos, which have one horn, is Unicornus. The Norwegians invented high carbon steel when they were making swords. They would out the bones of predators into the molten metal which added carbon. The fact that they didn't grasp the scientific concept made it even more metal. The belief on the existence of dragons started in Slovenia, where a cave animal, Proteus, which is a blind species of salamander, would be washed out from the caves to the surface during flooding periods. People used to believe they were baby dragons and their dragon mother would live inside the caves. Many myths about sea serpents probably stem from oarfishes. They look like sea serpents, are absolutely huge, live in almost every ocean and sometimes wash ashore. I got all that information from a River Monsters episode though, so take it with a grain of salt. That's all for today's video. Hope you guys liked it. If you liked the video, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, the best thing you can do is simply watch the videos. But if you really want to see the channel thrive, subscribe, like, comment, add to favorites, add to playlist, and share with friends. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Reddit and Insta. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you with tomorrow's upload.